Welcome to the Nephology podcast. I'm your host, Joe David, and I'm the founder and CEO of Nephos Group. On this podcast, we talk to founders, innovators, disruptors, and entrepreneurs from all across the globe who are building in Web3, technology, and finance. And if that's something that you're interested in, please hit that subscribe button to make sure you don't miss out on any of the latest episodes. Now on to the next episode. Hello everyone, welcome to the next episode of the Nephology podcast. Another episode on the road here in Joburg. Tarris from Luno here today. Delighted to have you here.
Thank you for having me. Really excited for our chat.
Yeah, likewise. Maybe we start with the usual kind of thing of who are you and who Luno are, and we'll go from there.
100%. So I'm Tarris. I am the business development manager at Luno. We're a centralized exchange that was founded in South Africa, but now operates across Africa, Asia, and Europe. We represent about 15 million customers globally, about 6 million of those in South Africa, and a great mixture of retail investors where we were kind of the forerunners in South Africa and a lot of the emerging markets that we support to support our retail customers, but also now a really exciting mix of institutional and business customers that we support. So yeah, we offer everything from your vanilla spot trading to tokenized stocks, staking, a number of institutional products and partnership products.
Amazing. And what I guess the question I always like to know is, how did you get into crypto? What dragged you into this? Was Luno the first crypto?
No, Luno wasn't my first foray into crypto. I think the first time I heard about Bitcoin, I was probably in high school, and I managed to stumble upon it. I informed my mother that this looked really cool. She suggested we invest, and I said, that's a terribly irresponsible decision. I'm 17. Why would you ever take any of my advice? So we did not, and I will regret that for a long time.
And I bet she holds that against you.
Yeah, she definitely does. Everyone would be enjoying retirement by now if it wasn't for my conservativeness. But more professionally, after university, I wanted to work in the tech space, the startup space. I was fortunate enough to get an internship at a company called Ubu. That was a South African company based in Johannesburg trying to create digital universal basic income, and they were using crypto and the blockchain to do that. Before that, I'd never really worked in any serious capacity, and it was a real kind of full exposure to the entire life cycle of cryptocurrency, from seeing the team actually creating the white paper and doing the tokenomics to picking the network that they wanted to build on top. It was at a time when ICOs were like the really hot thing.
Yeah.
So I got a lot of exposure to that process and how exchanges worked. So that was really my first kind of pull into the crypto space and the startup space. After working there for a couple of years, I moved to a venture capital firm where I advised about 40 African startups in the agri-tech, health tech, and fintech space. And that gave me, I wanted to kind of get a broader exposure to the African tech ecosystem, and that gave that to me. But after that, I really wanted to kind of get back in the trenches, back to crypto. I always tell people I decided I wanted to do what was the hardest thing I could think of, and trying to convince South African corporates and institutions to buy into cryptocurrency seemed like the right challenge.
One of those challenges.
Yeah.
Well, that's a fairly good segue actually into the African market, I guess. And it's a very interesting thing. Even this morning I was at my hotel and obviously wearing this T-shirt and the word cryptos on it, and one of the waiters was like, "Oh, you do crypto?" And you don't get that in the UK, and you get it a little bit in the UAE, but again, most of the time you don't get it. So I was quite surprised by that. How do you see the market here in South Africa in terms of the adoption of crypto? I guess both retail and then moving on to the kind of institutional side.
Retail is really high. I think something that's really interesting about crypto is it's one of the few technologies, particularly in the financial space, that has largely been driven by retail investors or retail participants and not pushed by institutions. Every kind of the formalization of institutional all came later, and same in South Africa. The South African community has been very, very involved in cryptocurrency from the early days. Luno has existed for about 14 years.
Wow.
So just even from a centralized exchange perspective,
Yeah.
we're very old.
Yeah, very, yeah.
And that's a funny thing when you tell traditional people 14 years is very old. They can't even imagine.
Yeah.
And so from an adoption perspective in South Africa, it has been really, really high. The other markets we operate in, Kenya, Uganda, Nigeria in particular, it's been even higher. Often there's economic reasons that contribute to that adoption. Nigeria being a place where accessing dollars is really difficult and their currency is quite volatile. So people often pull to get out of that. In South Africa, well, we don't have the same level of volatility with the currency. There's always been an interest in seeking alternative investments or opportunities outside of what was traditionally offered, and a sense of access to independence and being able to have a control over one's future. So that has been a large underpinning of what built the South African crypto community. And then us as Luno and other participants, but really tried to drive the mainstream adoption, and we really saw that come through starting in 2017, and then again kind of the second phase in 2020. That has been a big contributor to, I think, in South Africa, crypto being a bit more normalized. It isn't so much as this kind of weird idea that someone talks about on the side. It's very commonplace, it's very normal and in the mainstream. And that has come helped by regulation, but also by Luno working with larger partners. We launched a partnership with a major bank, Discovery Bank, last year. It's a super old institution, very well trusted, very prominent in the fact that they were.
And what was that? What does that entail, that partnership?
It's simple and fantastic. They are a digital bank, very similar to Revolut in the UK.
Okay, yeah.
And they are part of a larger health insurance investment company called Discovery. And this bank is only a few years old, but the fastest growing bank, probably about 2 million customers. And they've been very conscious about trying to be on the forefront of innovation. And I think that's where we really worked well with them. So now in their app, you can access a Luno account very shortly after recording. You should be able to create a Luno account from within their app. And you
seamlessly go between.
And to me, the really exciting thing is they have a points mechanism, a rewards points for rewarding good financial behavior. Something that's really important to them is having your savings. And now, because of their ability to link your Luno account to a Discovery Bank account, your crypto savings actually contribute to that.
Towards
and that's
that point scoring.
The first time that's ever happened. It's very seamless. And now something that, particularly in South Africa, where people really like to hold on their crypto for long periods of time, they're not all into trading. It gives a huge advantage to South Africans that want to just keep their crypto with Luno and Link, mainly because now they get better interest rates, they get all kinds of extra benefits. So these things have started making crypto a lot more kind of normal and mainstream.
Yeah. And it's interesting, like I say, from the world is such a diverse place, but one thing that is becoming much more common as a kind of common thing is crypto and stable coins and remittances and things. So that's super interesting, and it's very, I have found the limited activity that I've done in terms of on and off ramping in South Africa, I found the banks much more open and facilitating those transactions much better and much more streamlined than I have in a lot of other jurisdictions. Do you find the banks are, obviously the Discovery Bank thing is another level kind of conversation, but do you find some of these bigger banks are still open to in the UK, for example, if I try and off ramp from a crypto exchange into UK bank, it's going to be nigh on impossible to be able to do that. Here it seems very possible. It seems like most of the major banks are accepting of it when it comes from someone like you guys who have a reputation and a brand and they know who you are. Do you find that as a fair?
It's definitely I would say fair now. And maybe for the last few years, there were definitely periods where that wasn't the case, where the kind of experience of customers trying to withdraw funds from Luno to a bank and getting it rejected or frozen and getting, why are you using cryptocurrency? There was a period where The use of cards were prevented on any of the exchanges and things like
okay.
that. So there was a bit of a learning period. I think in the start, crypto was too small for anyone to really worry about. So it was easier then. We had a number of banks were the original investors in Luno.
Okay.
But as it evolved, it became a lot more volumes, a lot more people. I think the risk assessment changed a bit, and then it became a lot more locked down. But as the regulatory environment in South Africa has matured, we've definitely seen banks feel a lot more comfortable. But I do think that's also driven by a lot of kind of good behavior and being proactive. We spend a lot of time engaging with banks, being very upfront about what we do and how we do it. Most of our compliance, risk, and fin crime teams are from banks. They understand how things go, and often we're a lot more strict and stringent than a bank would be. And then that pulls in a lot of confidence and comfort for a bank to receive or send funds to us. So right now, I think we are in a really good place where every single major bank is happy to support someone funding or depositing and withdrawing. But it definitely wasn't always the case.
No, and I guess it can never be 0 to 100, right? There always has to be a learning curve. And for you guys as well, like you say, building that reputation, showing everybody that you're here to stay, that you do things properly, it might sound obvious as a business to be like, yeah, we do things properly, of course. But to the outside world looking in, it very much proof is in the pudding. You've got to be able to prove that you are, as legit as you say you are. And so, like you say, time is the only thing that proves that.
Yeah, exactly. And I think we've been around for a very long time, and we were started before a lot of the other kind of major cryptocurrency exchanges that may exist now. We were very intentional about not being overly aggressive and having too much of a risk-taking attitude. We were very conscious that we had, particularly in the markets we operated, because we're typically the first major entity there was an image that we had to maintain that if we did something bad, it was going to tarnish everyone else. That's not fair. But we're also really conscious that we're dealing with people's money. So we did have to make... There were periods where we definitely slowed down on where other people were starting to run and push, where we slowed down because we wanted to be a bit more reserved and conservative about how we approach things.
And that's a very, in a nice sense, mature approach, right? Because if you're a big enough player that you can move the market in inverted commas in terms of whether that's physically market, but also in how it's perceived, it's a very mature approach to have of not just this big kind of arrogant, we can do what we want because of who we are, what you're going to do about it, to actually we respect the industry enough that we want to show that we are a legitimate player within that space. So I think that's a really mature approach for the business to take, is to go, we're going to show that we're doing things properly, and if there is any risk of any issues, we're going to be honest about that, and we're going to make sure that the industry doesn't suffer because of our arrogance.
Exactly.
Of we can do what we want, which a lot of FTX is probably quite a good example of where arrogance goes to the next level, right? Where you go, we are too big to fail, we can do whatever we want,
and we'll figure it out at the end.
We'll cozy up with whoever we want to, and it won't be a problem until it's a problem, and then that issue tarnished the industry
massively.
And a lot of my conversations when that was happening were Bernie Madoff, Enron, all these, and here Steinhoff as an example. These, you don't tarnish if with a Bernie Madoff, it's not the whole kind of hedge fund market that gets tarnished. It's him, or it's there's some conversation around Wall Street and some activities, and but in principle it's not the whole. Whereas one crypto exchange, large admittedly, does something wrong, and the whole industry gets tarnished by it, right?
And it also has so much staying power. I mean, FTX is still something that I have to speak about and address in conversations with asset managers and other financial institutions, because that is, for a lot of people that aren't in the crypto space, that was like the last time they heard about cryptocurrency. Was this FTX, Sam Bankman-Fried, like this huge scandal. And when they look at they see Luno and they say, well, are you not the local version of this? And that is, I think it was a really big learning experience for us, because the impact outside of the actual just financial loss was huge, and it's still something that the industry is recovering from, because a lot of the people that may understand a bit more of the details of why it happened, and it has like nothing to do with crypto.
No.
It was corporate governance gone awry.
100%. Yeah.
But no one that is not into crypto ever stuck around long enough to kind of get that exposure.
No, I agreed. And again, it was corporate governance, and it was also youthful
Yeah.
arrogance. You know, it was youthful kind of, I don't even think an element of it was complete, I can do what I want, I don't care, fuck everyone. I don't think it was that. I think it was more, as a younger person that's making a lot of money, that's got some friends in high places, you can get lost in your own success.
Yeah,
and your
100%.
own kind of
Buy your own story.
Yeah. So I think it is such a challenge that, like you say, to deal with as an industry. But I guess moving on to some of the other products that you guys have, my wife and kids are coming out here on the weekend, and we're going down to Cape Town, and we're going to go to a safari, and
Brilliant.
she sent me a screenshot, and she was like, oh look, I can pay for this safari in crypto, and Luno's name was there as a payment facility. So maybe we can talk about that sort of adoption from a payment methodology perspective. Was I just lucky? Or lucky is the wrong word, but in a sense that I stumbled across one that did accept it, or is it quite a wide-ranging thing now in South Africa, where crypto being a payment method within?
It's really interesting, because there've been a lot of communities that have been working really, really hard for a long time in South Africa to normalize the idea of crypto payments, specifically Bitcoin payments.
Yeah.
There's a lot of community organizations like Bitcoin Akasi and things like that, who have spent a lot of years and years and years going to like a specific shop, an individual shop, and explaining cryptocurrency and setting them up with wallets. And that has laid a lot of the foundation for where we are now, where we as Luno have developed a product called Luno Pay that we've done in partnership with Zappa and another company called Money Badger that was founded by one of the co-founders of Luno, that has essentially blown the whole crypto payments industry wide open. So at the moment, you could use Luno and your crypto to buy pretty much anything from plane tickets to paying your electricity bills to buying food. We have 700,000 merchants that accept it across South Africa, and that largely, to give lots of credit to the Money Badger team who have built that network, but a lot of the partners that we've brought on to help get that out there. So it's almost really there's now fewer places that probably don't accept crypto than don't.
And from a shop front perspective, so I walk into a supermarket and I say I want to buy a can of Coke and whatever. How are you, point of sale wise, how are you managing the payment flow? Is there a handheld device that people are using? And
all QR codes.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's definitely levels to the developing this. Right now, it's mainly QR codes, and you'll often see the partners that we have as Zappa and Money Badger. You'll see their logo somewhere, and there'll be a QR code, and you'll know what to do. That's one of the problems that we're still trying to get through on the payment side, is it's only really obvious to people that are looking for this. So people that want to do crypto payments, they understand how to do it, but it's not something that someone may organically stumble upon. So that's a big piece of what we're working on, that education piece, that awareness piece. Luckily, we have lots of great partners, even in Tether, who have been a big player in encouraging this. We're going to get to a point where we do think there will be a lot more versatility from the types of devices, and then the awareness of the merchants as well as to how they can leverage cryptocurrency more.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. And on the other side to that, the kind of online payment, I guess, is that easier in inverted commas because it's online already, and therefore there's no direct point of sale that you've got to put a QR code in, or it's just Apple Pay and bank transfer, or crypto.
Yeah.
That feels like an easier flow to I walk into a supermarket or I walk into a coffee shop and I buy a coffee and I've got to scan a QR code, and I can imagine the friction there being a bit more challenging at a point of sale.
100%. I think online is definitely easier because you can be more explicit about, like, here's a crypto thing. You can put up a Luno logo and people know what that is. And the point of sale, I remember the first time we launched with a major retailer. It was the first merchant, was called Pick and Pay. And it was really exciting, and we were doing a live demo for the Luno team, or we were all watching the live demo. The guy, Alex Collar, who developed it for Luno, went into this Pick and Pay, and then we were trying to scan the QR code, but they didn't know how to get the QR code to display on the machine because no one used the QR code mechanism on the point of sale device. And that was like, oh, okay, we need to make sure that we help the tellers and everything understand. So there is definitely more friction there. I think the levels that we want to start working towards is cards and do Apple Pays and all of those types of experiences where it's just tapping. So that is something that is definitely where we want to work towards.
And I guess on that point and more broadly, from a South African regulatory perspective, is the regulator on board with obviously they are, I guess, is the answer to that, because you wouldn't be able to put these point of sales in shops if the regulator was like, you can't do that, otherwise they would just stop you every time you do it, right? So they obviously are on board, but like in terms of how they work with you guys, which I'm sure they do work very closely with an organization like you, how positive, I guess, are those conversations?
So we have a great relationship with the regulator here and in our other markets. We definitely believe quite strongly that it's a lot better to engage with regulators and take them on the journey, understand their perspective and give them context, than trying to just do things on your own. Because like you said, if we started doing this Luno Pay thing, the regulator would easily shut it down, and retailers aren't going to
accept it,
come and fight for us to accept this, particularly when it was still such an early concept. We're very fortunate that we do have a team internally at Luno that spends a lot of time understanding what the regulators' concerns are, whether it's on the payment space, whether it's on the exchange control, whether it's kind of tax and various other things. We're able to provide that guidance and advice. And an advantage that we do have is because we operate in so many different markets across Africa and Asia, we have a lot of experience dealing with regulators. So we have a really good idea of, one, how to communicate with them and how to advocate for the crypto industry at large. Because what we also don't want regulators to go down a route of is over-regulating and stifling the innovation. And
Europe's probably an example of that.
Yeah, Europe might be an example where a regulator has taken a more aggressive regulatory approach. Fortunately, in South Africa, we have a regulator that is very open to feedback and consultation.
Yeah, that's great.
It's the same in most of our markets. So that has been really helpful for us in advocating for what we hope will be the frameworks that will exist. And currently the frameworks that we do operate within are quite favorable, and we're quite comfortable with them.
Yeah, that's good. And I guess more broadly then, we're touching on Africa, but how do you find the wider African for me, Africa seems, Latin America is another one, Asia's another one where they just seem like prime crypto, blockchain, especially payment, stablecoins, things like that, kind of opportunities for this, what it's kind of built for, right? It's not, 100%. To an extent, it's not built for the UK as such, right? It's not built for the US, where, a lot of, not everyone, but the majority of people have access to a lot of these financial products that, whereas Africa definitely seems like one of those markets where they don't have as much easy access to a lot of this stuff. So how have you found the wider kind of African adoption that in the markets that you're in? Is it similar to here, or?
It's way better in most even. I mean, South Africa's got a really high adoption rate. Nigeria completely eclipses us.
Okay.
Nigeria, it's extremely commonplace to to use cryptocurrency in your day-to-day life. We have a couple million customers in Nigeria as well, and it is something that we've been very, very conscious to always be involved and on the ground, even though it's been, from a regulatory perspective, quite volatile in understanding where we sit. But in adoption, that's never wavered. As soon as crypto kind of came into the Nigerian market, it was rapidly taken and rapidly used. I would hazard to guess that if you walk into any Nigerian town or city, people would know exactly what USDT is. They would have heard of Tether. Whereas here, if I walk out around here, no one has ever heard of that. No one knows what a stable coin is.
Okay.
Even though there's a couple million South Africans that do own cryptocurrency, it's not as much as part of our daily life as it is for some of our Nigerian customers, for our Kenyan customers. And I think a lot of that familiarity comes from there was already adoption around mobile money.
Yes.
And that being digital money, and crypto just became an extension of it. And then there are certain other economic factors that contribute to the value of having crypto.
Yeah, I think Nigeria, I was told once, they've got like 3 rates for their currency. They've got like the official bank rate, they've got the like kind of day-to-day rate that most people use, and then the black market rate, which is completely different again. And it's like, how do you even operate in a country where you've got these 3 different,
And now you have a USDT rate, a USDC rate.
It's just, the whole thing is, I was actually talking to someone about Lebanon, and they were saying that they've got old dollars and new dollars in Lebanon. And again, I might be kind of butchering this story a little bit because I'm not an expert, but where like before a certain time, the dollars were a certain rate to like, it was if you wanted to convert it into actual USD, it was a certain rate that you'd get. And after a period, whatever date that was, it then flipped into a new crazy. And they were like, so a lot of people were trying to arbitrage between and get their money, and
I love that.
The concept of that though is just makes it so difficult to
operate,
to manage and to operate, and like you say, to move money and all those sorts of things. And I can totally imagine in places like Nigeria and stuff it being
it's just normal. It's
but
just
I could also imagine the regulator not liking it, because it takes it away from this controlled, kind of market that they've got, right? So I think I can understand the users on the ground being like, I want as much USDT as I can get, and I can imagine the regulator saying, I want you to have as little as possible.
Yeah,
and that's a challenge.
It's a huge challenge, and it's also one of those. I was at a dinner and we were talking about this topic and kind of trying to address it. Like, is it too far to put the genie back in the bottle? And I think in some markets, maybe it isn't. If you wanted to ban cryptocurrency, that life would go on. I think in Nigeria, it might be at a place where if it's not there already, it's approaching that point where getting rid of cryptocurrency would not be an acceptable outcome. As we start seeing, particularly in Nigeria, a lot more institutional adoption of stable coins and using that to move money around, whether it's cross-border or locally, it is almost guarantees that there's always going to be some level of cryptocurrency adoption in Nigeria as the Nigerian government. And it's also very interesting. It has a different structure as a government to what South Africans would be familiar with, and a lot of different authorities that have authority over various different aspects that may not interact or consult with each other, which leads to a lot of fragmentation. What we do know is that the Nigerian government do want to move towards a place where things are a lot more out in the open and regulated and uncertainty. They have started giving out licenses and sandbox regimes. I think it's going to be a case of governments, much like banks, no one likes to be the first one to do something. They want to see how other similar markets do certain things and how those play out, and see if there's certain risks or lessons they can get. And we are starting to see now that almost most countries in the world have some type of crypto regulation, whereas 5 years ago there was kind of nothing for anyone. That we'll start seeing a lot more of that maturity coming around, and I do think there is going to be somewhere in the middle where they will end up having to meet with the Nigerian governments, or not just the Nigerian governments, but governments in general, allow space for these products
Yeah.
and this asset class to exist and be used in different ways, but also still maintain some of the control they need.
It's really difficult because there's an argument of just turn a blind eye, it's happening, but you kind of just let it happen, and there's no point in arguing because, like you say, there's too much of it, and blah 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 blah. But then the flip side to that is, as a government, it's very difficult to just turn a blind eye. Like, you need to have some control and some way of reprimand, or whatever it may be, right? When there are,
100%.
so it is a very difficult.
It opens, without that, it does open up a lot of room for abuse. And I know in the crypto space, it comes from this kind of anti-authoritarian perspective where there shouldn't be regulations and things should be decentralized. But on the ground, and using South Africa as an example, people have a lot of fear and mistrust when it comes to cryptocurrency because of certain scandals that likely could have been easily avoided if we had been regulated, at least similarly to other financial service providers. And that is something that we as Luno are very conscious of, and that's kind of what we advocate for. Is we just want to make sure that the regulations exist to help protect customers, even if that means putting more friction or burden onto us or onto our customers and adding an extra form here and there. But if that has a really material impact on the ability to protect customers, then that's worth it. And something I'm sure you can appreciate. Also, there's a lot of money moving around, and at the moment there's a lot of tax revenue on the table, and no government anywhere in the world is going to let that leave.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, even the UK, they've been taxing crypto for a long time without any real regulatory oversight of it, and it's the kind of what do you call it? The more aggressive of those people are then going, well, if there's no regulation, how can you possibly tax me?
Yeah,
Which is not quite the case, but I can get their point as well. And on the regulatory, I guess kind of like anti-authoritarian piece, I think there's a place for both within crypto, right? There should be a kind of decentralized place where you can go and play in if that's the area you want to play. But if you're a retail exchange, if you're selling your services, marketing your services to Mr. ABC on the street, there should be some oversight of that, because there's far too much risk for that individual to get into something that they shouldn't or don't want to or don't understand.
1,000%.
Right? And I think that's the difference. Is I don't believe that everything in crypto should be regulated. I believe there should be a space for people to play if they want to. But I think on the other side, there should be if you're going to market yourselves as a retail facing business, you should have an element of oversight on that, I think.
Yeah. And that's a question that we get asked a lot of, like altcoins and these more risky things, and it's like, well, should you have them or not have them? Like there's a level of responsibility we feel for our customers where if we are listing something, there's a tacit, like, we think this is good. Whether or not that is our actual opinion, customers can be like, Luno, approve this thing. And that's been, and sometimes we probably have been a little bit too intensive about that. But we're really, really conscious of that responsibility and picking that. And I think we also have the same perspective that there is a limit on how much you can warn people about certain things. Like, if someone wants to explore a certain type of asset, as long as they're going in fully informed, that is really great for us.
100%. Yeah.
That's where we feel like we need to be.
And if people want to take risks, they should be allowed to take risk.
Yeah.
I can't talk about this as much in the UAE because there's not as much gambling, but the UK and here there's quite a big gambling market.
Yes.
Gambling is a huge risk. It's a huge kind of place where people can put a significant amount of money and end up with absolutely nothing at the end of a football match or a rugby match or a horse race or and that's a very definitive outcome. The team wins, loses or draws, the horse wins or doesn't win the race. Whereas in crypto, okay, you might see something do that and then do that, but quite often that isn't the end. That might be a point, but then there's always that. You don't lose everything. In some cases you do, but so I think there's that side of it as well. That if gambling has got that oversight of it, then crypto should be able to find a way to have a similar level of oversight to allow people to go, I am going to speculate, and I can see that this could go to zero, but I'm taking a punt. Or the other person that says, I don't want to take a punt at all, I want to invest in only a Bitcoin or an Ethereum or something that I see as very high chance of success, So I think there's got to be a place for everything.
And I mean, I think that's also the beauty of cryptocurrency now, is that there is this extremely wide breadth of assets that come with all of the advantage of blockchain and all of these things that really does fit for anyone.
Yeah.
We have, it's very funny to say this, but conservative crypto investing customers who absolutely are going to only stick to their Bitcoins and their Ethereums and things like that. And then we have others that are more adventurous that might go into an altcoin, but a lot of them that may have a particular passion that they align themselves with, or community that they like about a coin, and they'll go into that. And I do agree 100%. Maintaining that ability to access those types, the assets that you are comfortable with and have knowledge of, is really important.
Yeah, super important. So I guess you're kind of looking more ahead here. Where do you see, as Luno, I guess from your side as a business, what's kind of, without giving away trade secrets, what's kind of, kind of on the horizon, but also more broadly in terms of the crypto kind of space here, where are you seeing things moving?
So I think there's at this stage there's almost two paths, and the reality is we are doing a lot of work as Luno to push out a lot of really new interesting products that are crypto related, things like tokenized stocks. We're doing a lot of work on real world assets and listing those. That is going to open up a whole new world for traditional financial services. We do think that there is going to be a route that, if regulation changes, cryptocurrency is going to skyrocket in adoption here. There's a particular regulation called Regulation 28 that effectively prevents collective investment schemes from owning cryptocurrency, and that is where the bulk of South Africa's retail investment capital sits. And a lot of that is also guided by advisors. There's a lot of good reasons for that regulation to prevent cryptocurrency, at least when it started. Now we're at this point where there is a very wide breadth of cryptocurrency, so there might be things that are a bit more appropriate than others to add into that. If that changes, the whole new world.
Floodgates open type thing.
If that doesn't change, we still see a ton of growth. Something that I don't know if it was caused by cryptocurrency or was just a byproduct of it, is we're seeing a lot more people that are interested in independent investments. They want to have a bit more control. We see places like Robinhood being very successful. We have a partner called Easy Equities that do a similar thing, and they are having a very, very successful year. So we still think that even if these traditional products don't ever get opened up to cryptocurrency, people are building all the ways that they can. So we're doing a lot of work on understanding how we can tokenize very specific, appropriate things with the right types of partners. And a lot of those partners are 100-year-old institutions that this will be their first foray into cryptocurrency. So I don't think that we're going to see a place where cryptocurrency goes backwards here.
Yeah, okay.
I do think it's just going to become something that's a lot more normalized, and at some point the idea of having crypto is just not going to be part of the conversation. A tokenized stock will actually just be what stocks become.
Yeah, okay. No, that makes a lot of sense, and I do agree. I think once you start down the path of kind of crypto regulation, but also kind of control and direction, I don't think it's very easy to go back.
Yeah.
So I think that it's a positive that they've gone as far as they have, because now they've kind of set the stall out as actually this is the. Whereas if you haven't gone very far, it's very easy to not go further. So I've personally been very, what's the word? Kind of not surprised, but pleased with what I've seen from the South African market in terms of crypto adoption and businesses and individuals that are in the space and working with those and how positive it seems that, I've rarely spoken to somebody, and I don't have conversations all the time, but where they've been completely negative.
Yeah, I think everyone's pretty optimistic.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, everyone maybe shouldn't speak in absolutes.
No, of course
But
there will be people, of course.
It is, I would say, by and large, everyone is quite optimistic about the way things are going. There are obviously going to be disagreements on how certain things will be regulated or changed or set up or offered. But we're definitely, if the goal as a crypto community is wider adoption and usage of this asset class and this technology, everything is pointing to that becoming the reality. Like the Luno's kind of vision is to upgrade the financial system, and in South Africa it's very clear that we have all of the rails we need to get to that stage.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. Well, Tarris, it's been a great conversation. I'd love to carry on, but we are kind of running low on time. So for those people that want to kind of find out more about Luno and you and what you're doing, where's the best place for them to find you?
So jump on our socials, but I would always recommend if you email support@luno.com, throw my name in there, tell them that you're looking for me, they'll put you in touch with me. Tell them if you want to do a partnership, just want to have a conversation. We're always keen to work with the community, work with traders and founders, and do the best we can to develop the best products.
Amazing. We'll link all that in the description. But Tarris, thank you so much for your time, and hopefully to have this conversation again soon.
Looking forward to it.
Thank you so much.